You know how some moments split your life into before and after? For me, that moment was when Karen from the HOA stood on my porch, arms crossed, glaring at the brand new wheelchair ramp we'd built for my 10-year-old son, Ethan. It had taken us weeks to install. Not for vanity, but for survival. Ethan had just come home from the hospital. After a car accident that left him paralyzed from the waist down. He was brave, stronger than anyone I knew. That ramp wasn't just wood and metal. It was his freedom. But Karen didn't see it that way. She saw it as an eyesore. "Mrs. Jacobs," she said with that nasal tone that could curdle milk. "This ramp violates HOA Code 14B. Exterior modifications without prior approval. It needs to be removed immediately." I stared at her, barely believing what I was hearing. "Karen, my son can't walk anymore. He needs this to get inside the house." She smiled, but not kindly. "Rules are rules. If we let you have this, what's next? Neon lights? Satellite dishes? We have standards to maintain." The world seemed to tilt. Ethan was sitting just behind the door, overhearing everything. I saw the pain in his eyes, not from his injury, but from humiliation. "Karen, please," I whispered, trying not to cry. "Just look at him." She glanced at Ethan's wheelchair, then back at me, expression unchanged. "You can apply for approval through the HOA board. Until then, I expect it removed by Friday." Then she turned and strutted down the driveway, clipboard swinging like a weapon. That night, Ethan asked me, "Mom, did I do something wrong?" And that broke me. I promised him I'd never let anyone take away what he needed, not even the HOA. But I had no idea what kind of storm I was about to walk into. Because Karen wasn't just enforcing rules. She was about to make our lives a living nightmare. One meeting, one letter, and one threat at a time. And as I soon learned, when you fight someone who thinks they are the law, things get ugly fast. By Monday morning, I thought maybe Karen had calmed down. Maybe seeing Ethan would melt her icy heart just a little. I was wrong. When I opened my mailbox, a thick envelope sat inside, stamped with the HOA logo. Inside was a formal notice of violation. It demanded immediate removal of the wheelchair ramp and threatened fines of $200 per day until it was gone. I felt my stomach twist. This wasn't just Karen being annoying. This was war. That evening, I went to the HOA meeting at the community clubhouse. The room was full of neatly dressed neighbors, most of whom avoided my eyes. At the head of the table sat Karen, perfectly coiffed, sipping from a mug that read, "Keep calm and enforce the rules." When it was my turn to speak, I stood up, holding a photo of Ethan smiling in his wheelchair. "I'm asking for understanding," I said. "This ramp is temporary, but it's essential for my son's mobility. It's not hurting anyone." Karen leaned back in her chair. "You violated procedure," she said coolly. "No prior submission, no approval. It's not personal. It's about fairness." "Fairness?" I snapped. "Fairness is a kid being able to enter his own home without crawling up the steps." The room fell silent. Some neighbors looked guilty, others indifferent. Karen smiled, a smile that said she enjoyed having control. "We'll take it under advisement," she said. "But for now, the fines stand." That night, I sat at Ethan's bedside while he slept. The notice crumpled in my hand. I couldn't let this continue. I spent hours researching disability rights, ADA compliance, and housing laws. What I discovered lit a fire inside me. The HOA might actually be breaking the law. The next morning, I called a local reporter who covered neighborhood disputes. I told her everything. The accident, the ramp, the violation letters, and Karen's refusal to listen. By the next day, a camera crew was parked outside my house. Karen must have seen them from her window, because moments later, she came marching over fuming. "What do you think you're doing?" she hissed. I met her glare with one of my own. Telling the truth, she opened her mouth, but the reporter stepped forward with a microphone. And just like that, the story that Karen tried to bury was about to go public. The local news aired our story that same night. The headline flashed across the screen. "HOA orders family to remove wheelchair ramp for disabled child." Within hours, it spread like wildfire. Neighbors, friends, even strangers online were furious. People started showing up at our house with signs, offering help, sharing Ethan's story on social media. One tweet alone got over 50,000 likes in a single day. Ethan watched from the living room window, his face lighting up for the first time in weeks. "Mom, people actually care?" he asked, his voice full of wonder. I smiled, ruffling his hair. "They do, sweetheart. They really do." But not everyone was happy. The next morning, I found Karen standing on my lawn again. Only this time, she wasn't alone. Two other HOA board members flanked her, looking uncomfortable but obedient. "You've caused quite the spectacle," Karen sneered. "This media circus is damaging our community's image." "Our community's image?" I said, stepping closer. "You mean your reputation?" She lifted her clipboard like a shield. I'm giving you one last warning. Remove the ramp or face legal action. Before I could reply, a voice called from across the street. It was Mr. Holloway, our elderly neighbor, a Vietnam veteran who usually kept to himself. You should be ashamed of yourself, he shouted at Karen. That boy's got more courage than you'll ever have. The crowd that had gathered began murmuring in agreement. Someone even started recording the confrontation on their phone. Karen's jaw clenched as she realized she was losing control of the narrative. Fine, she spat, her voice shaking with anger. But don't think this is over. She turned and stormed off, her heels clicking furiously on the sidewalk. That evening, I received dozens of supportive messages from people around the country. Lawyers, disability advocates, and families who'd faced the same cruelty. One message stood out. It was from a civil rights attorney named Lisa Tran. I saw your story, she wrote. You have every legal right to keep that ramp. If the HOA continues harassment, I'll represent you pro bono. Tears filled my eyes. For the first time, I didn't feel powerless. Karen had started this fight thinking she could intimidate us into silence. But now the entire neighborhood, maybe even the whole country, was watching her every move. And soon, she was going to regret every threat she made. Because I was done playing by her rules. A week later, the HOA called an emergency board meeting. Everyone in the neighborhood was invited. And for the first time, nearly everyone showed up. Karen sat at the front of the room, chin high, pretending she wasn't sweating under the pressure. The air buzzed with tension. People whispered, eyes darting between her and me. The local reporter was there too, camera ready. I stood holding Ethan's photo again. We didn't want to fight, I began. All we wanted was for my son to come home safely. This ramp isn't about breaking rules. It's about giving a child dignity. Karen cut in sharply. Mrs. Jacobs, no one here is against your son. But procedures exist for a reason. Procedures don't trump human decency. A voice interrupted. It was Mr. Holloway again, his cane tapping the floor. You think a ramp is uglier than your cruelty? You should be the one fined. The room erupted with murmurs of agreement. Some neighbors clapped softly. Others nodded, ashamed they hadn't spoken sooner. The HOA vice president cleared his throat. Given the recent attention, perhaps we should reconsider. Karen slammed her hand on the table. No. If we let her break one rule, the whole system falls apart. I took a deep breath and pulled out a letter. The one Lisa Tran, the attorney, had helped me draft. This is a notice of legal action, I said calmly. Under the Americans with Disabilities Act, denying reasonable accommodation to a disabled person is discrimination. The ramp stays, and if the HOA continues harassment, we'll see you in court. You could have heard a pin drop. Karen's face went pale. The vice president looked around the room, then at her. Karen, she's right. This has gone too far. For a moment, Karen said nothing. Her lips trembled, her jaw tight. Then, without a word, she grabbed her papers, stood up, and walked out of the room. No one stopped her. The board voted moments later, unanimously, to approve the ramp permanently. When I got home, Ethan was waiting by the window. What happened, Mom? I smiled, kneeling beside him. It's official, sweetheart. The ramp stays. Forever. He grinned, the biggest smile I'd seen since the accident. We won? We won, I whispered, hugging him tight. Because kindness always wins in the end. That night, as the sun set over the neighborhood, Karen's house stayed dark. For once, there were no letters, no threats, only peace. And for us, that ramp wasn't just a victory. It was a symbol that sometimes standing up for what's right changes everything. If you felt that justice was served, don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe for more real-life stories where kindness stands up to cruelty. Your support helps us tell more stories that truly matter.